One. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Common Fan Podcast. The last time we were here, we had previewed the India versus Australia Border Gavaskar Trophy, I think the second test. And I also said that Australia should look at playing middle tier nations like Ireland and Afghanistan and Zimbabwe if they wanted to play test matches. Not only did that blow up in my face, not only did Australia win the Border Gavaskar Trophy, but the word edging took on a whole different meaning in India, and it certainly wasn't regarding a pleasant or a happy ending. However, India came back home and India did what they do best, which is smash visiting teams, this time England in limited overs cricket. And now on to the Champions Trophy for India. So we have a lot of things to cover. First of all, which is why is the Champions Trophy being held after 8 long years? Is it tribute to the orange-haired man in the White House? We have our usual posse, Mannan, Ritvik, and Vijay. So Ritvik, first questions. Do you think it's the deep state's last roll of the dice to have the Champions Trophy just when Donald Trump's been voted in as president of the United States? And secondly, what chances does India have without Bumrah?
Well, I really don't think that Donald Trump has anything to do with cricket, but he has truly been a champion, especially going by the way he came back into becoming POTUS again. Coming back to cricket, my sources in the cricketing fraternity tell me that ICC is scared, very scared, of all the leagues that have mushroomed all over the world. And it's not just Test cricket, but they fear that international cricket is in danger. And to counter this, ICC wants to have one ICC event every year. And the Champions Trophy is a means to get to that end. Also, for the common fan, the Champions Trophy is the most democratic tournament around. And it's possible because the mighty Australians have probably never taken it too seriously. And let me throw a few stats here. 9 editions of the Champions Trophy have given us 7 different winners. 9 editions of the T20 World Cup have given us only 6. And wait for this. 14 editions of the 50 overs World Cup have given us only 6 unique winners, and we have Australia to thank for that. So probably this is the most interesting ICC tournament all around, and we should have something to look forward to. That said, let me ask my fellow friend from Delhi a cryptic question. Manan, do you think Virat's BGT performance also led to Kejriwal losing the Delhi elections? Well, both India and Aam Aadmi Party ended up missing hat-tricks here. So what do you think?
No, first of all, is the source of your information around ICC, shitting their pants is Jay Shah because he's just recently taken over, or something else?
I could tell you, but then I would have to kill you.
Oh,
You seem to be really selling
then it's probably Jay Shah.
then it has to be him, yes.
You seem to be really selling the Champions Trophy to our podcast listeners. Anyway, if that's what saves the trophy for another couple of years, so be it.
Yeah. So, to your question, Ritvik, again, you might think that Virat Kohli is from Delhi. He's not. He's part Bangalore, part London now. So don't think he's still from Delhi anyway, or Mumbai for that matter. That's where he lives. So no correlation, no causation. But yes, BJP did edge out Kejriwal in the elections, and a thick edge at that. Right. Given that, yeah, I mean, see, we've been talking about the lack of cricket or the lack of following of cricket that we've had so far. ICC trophies do have that anticipation, do have that revenue for star sports as well. And on top of that, even if we don't do well, we have an IPL coming up to take our minds off the bad cricket that happens in that happened in Dubai, or what happened in BGT. A lot of people have forgotten that because, hey, Rohit scored a century and we trounced England in both one days and T20s. So let's see how that goes. Vijay, you've been recording songs left, right, and center. Have they asked you to, record theme song for the Champions Trophy or not?
No, I think the last sporting event that I actually sang for was a famously well-known disaster called the Commonwealth Games. I was part of the theme that A.R. Rahman composed, and I actually sang in it. And I mean, among lots of people that made lots of money off those Commonwealth Games. I wasn't one, sadly. But yeah, I have been recording a lot of songs, and sometimes we have this technique in music called panning, where when you are listening to a song on your earphones or headphones, you'll hear something on your left, something on your right, and something on your center sometimes. So I think that's what you were talking about, Manan. Recording songs left, right, and center. You actually just sing into one mic. You don't go left or right, but then the engineer takes care of that. Sorry for that really random, boring segue into my life. Let's get back to the cricket. Am I excited about the Champions Trophy? Well, going by the one-day series that India just played against England, I would say not really. But I was also following the way Pakistan has been playing at home. And their home conditions have actually been a bane for Pakistan in recent times if you look at their test match history. So looks like something's changed about the pitches in Multan and whatever other places they've been playing. And there have been a couple of slow burners. There have been a couple of really, really high-scoring games where they chased down in excess of 350 in a bilateral against pretty good teams. And then there's New Zealand. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of teams tend to come into form. It's one of those nostalgic things. It's like boomers coming back for a 10-year reunion at ISB, right? Like an alumni reunion. That's kind of what this Champions Trophy feels like, because it's a one-day series, which is not the World Cup, and then all of these teams are just sleeping, and you have no idea what Sri Lanka and West Indies are doing. They're not going to be part of the subcontinental Champions Trophy because they were just not good enough. They violated some sort of honor code. They were kicked out, and it's weird, but it also piques a little bit of your interest simply because you don't see one-day championships happening so frequently these days. And I also feel like because there's been a bit of a break in the relationship we've all had with one-day cricket, and the way it ended the last time was a huge breakup for all of us in India. I just feel like it's one of those exciting things. It's like going out on a potential new date, right? So it's one of those things where, uh, sorry for all these analogies. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I think the first few matches will set the tone because it can either be really, really boring and one-sided, or it could be like, you would never know who's going to be on top till the last few seconds. And this is not about the date, it's about the Champions Trophy.
Oh, Jesus.
Over to you, PK.
To bring back some semblance of cricket into that conversation, look, I think
I was talking only about the cricket, PK.
Well, you were talking about a day. Anyway, I think it's going to be extremely difficult for India to win without our man, Mr. Jasprit Singh Bumrah. There is no one bowler in the world right now that causes batters to absolutely shit themselves, apart from Jasprit Bumrah. And if he's not playing, I just don't know who's going to, seal up one end. Forget about taking wickets. Even sealing up one end is going to be a big, big thing. I think Jaiswal was picked, then dropped as a non-traveling reserve, and now he's got an ankle injury, so he's not even playing domestic. That being said, they replaced a batter with a bowler, so I don't know what's happening there. And I think Mr. Gautam Gambhir, was he playing the last Champions Trophy 8 years ago? I don't think so. No, he wasn't. But I don't think this is not only a test for India's limited overs squad. I think it's also a test for Mr. Gautam Gambhir. I understand he's still in his probation period, so you can let go of employees rather quickly in those probation periods. Speaking of employees,
did you forget which party he was part of?
he was part of the Jeffrey Boycott Rubish party, I think.
It's funny, PK, that you chose to bring up Gautam Gambhir just before the Champions Trophy, because again, I'll throw in some trivia. Gautam Gambhir was actually dropped for good just before the 2013 Champions Trophy to give Shikhar Dhawan a chance. And he had been having a pretty decent run in ODIs, but was it injury or was he dropped? I'm not really sure. But he had a few bad games, 7 or 8 bad games, and he ended up being dropped. Shikhar Dhawan had a glorious Champions Trophy. He ended up as the highest run getter in that particular tournament, not just for India, but across. And since then, there was no looking back for him. And Gautam Gambhir never made it back to the Indian ODI squad.
I think, Ritvik, we can probably safely say that Gautam Gambhir was dropped. Rohit Sharma wasn't captain then. So, injuries and doctors' diagnosis is probably not something that happened around that time. Look, I want to talk about another team as well. Over the past few years, we've been hearing about a lot about this term called Bazball and the supposed freedom with how England plays. Except, as they say, one of the certainties in life is, death, taxes, and England playing some horrible, horrible cricket. Vijay, one of the most recent games was in your hometown of Chennai. Did you check out the game? And does England have any hope in hell of making the top four?
I did check out the game, but on my TV, and I didn't.
Before I also throw to you, I just wanted to have one other question regarding Rohit Sharma's century. If Rohit Sharma scores a century and Vidya Balan doesn't tweet about it, has he really scored a century?
Vidya only tweets when he, willingly drops himself for the cause of the team.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't
God.
think. I don't think. I think the tweet will come when Virat Kohli scores a century about how selfless Rohit was and at the other end.
Fair enough. Fair point. Fair point. Anyway, I was interrupting you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there was a game in Chennai, and funnily enough, nobody heard about tickets being sold. But when somebody wanted a ticket, we couldn't find one. That is typically how Chennai ticketing works. It's all a scam here when it comes to cricket. I did not go to the game because I did not feel like going to it. I did catch a little bit of it on TV, and yeah, like you said, the entire series was a pretty one-sided affair. Hey, so but it was a T20 in Chennai, if I remember correctly, or was it a one-day? Yeah, it was a
No, it was a
T20.
T20.
Yeah. Now look, Rohit Sharma has scored a century in a format that he sort of has been owning for a long time, and let's not let our recent disappointment with him on the Test front cloud our judgment about how good he is as a one-day international player. And I do think he will be crucial for India's prospects in the Champions Trophy. Coming to England and talking about Bazball, I understand Baz has taken over the white ball coaching as well for England. And I think in typical English fashion, they like to parade a term that they feel like they've introduced to the world, and suddenly it's the buzzword, it's the good thing. So Bazball, it is now. Colonialism, it was back then. And till you realize that it is actually truly evil and detrimental to everybody who's involved in the cause. So I think that's really what England's up to these days. And I don't know. I'm full of analogies today. Am I not?
Yeah.
So I don't think England is a serious prospect when it comes to the Champions Trophy. But then again, you never know. It's not as fickle a game as the 2020 format is. So I think there is a reasonable confidence with which I say that the current England crop of batsmen, especially, don't look like they can come up good against a pretty decent bowling attack. And I'm not just talking about the Indian bowling attack. I'm sure a lot of the other teams have pretty good bowling as well. So I honestly feel like other teams like New Zealand or even Australia, I will never write Australia off after what happened in that World Cup last year, 2 years ago now. So I think all of those teams definitely have an edge over England, and let's not give them more importance than they do on this podcast. So, Ritvik, over to you.
So, even I would not count England as strong contenders. In fact, one very funny thing happened that I think Australia was touring Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka whitewashed them in an ODI series. But Sri Lanka has unfortunately not made it to the Champions Trophy. So, so also all that fun that they had stays restricted to their own island nation. And also interesting is that just before the Champions Trophy, Pakistan, New Zealand, and South Africa managed to squeeze in a tri-series. And hell, I don't know when was the last time a tri-series happened. And it wasn't anything like one of those glorious CB or erstwhile VB series used to happen, where three teams would play each other thrice, culminating into a grand best of three final, which Australia would end up winning in most of these situations in straight two games. But it was like those small tri-series tournaments which India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka would have in the 90s, where they would play each other once on dust bowls and or probably in Sharjah.
I remember
if
those.
not India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, India, Sri Lanka, and Zimbabwe, one of those countries would be there that India would back. And then after that, there would be a game where somehow Ranatunga and the others would squeeze in a victory. And that's the time when Sri Lanka and South Africa used to win a lot of games. But coming back to present times, New Zealand ended up winning all the games here. And I think they are very, very strong contenders to the Champions Trophy. And I would put my money on them. I would have loved to say India, but I think without Bumrah, we are losing a lot of teeth. Our bowling is losing a lot of teeth. I really think that there will be some chinks in our armory which will get exposed. We'll definitely make it to the semis. That's what I'm hoping for. But after that, it's probably going to be tough.
We're
That
also
said, PK, yeah, Vijay.
Sorry, I was just going to say we're also not counting one of the teams that has probably the most experience in the conditions that we're talking about here. We're talking about Pakistan and Dubai conditions, right? I feel like the most prepared in these conditions, at least it seems like this is the one team that's been playing a lot in these, in these countries is Afghanistan. And
Hmm.
I, I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry to have interrupted you there, but I just feel like we should really talk about Afghanistan a little more because in this format, I feel like they can actually they showed a lot of promise in the 2023 World Cup. It was
Hmm.
23, right? Or was it last year? Yeah,
Yeah,
23.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was 23.
Yeah.
yeah.
I tend to
19th
forget we
November.
actually won the World
19th
Cup
of
last year.
November, let's just, yeah,
Yes.
No, you're very right, Vijay, when you say that, but I think you're also being extremely biased when you skip saying Bangladesh here. You're speaking about Pakistan, you're speaking about Afghanistan, but if you remember, I mentioned that Champions Trophy is a very democratic tournament. So Pakistan has already won it once. Afghanistan still has some time before, like they'll make a few splashes, but they may not end up winning it.
Yeah, but there's
So
no democracy
I
in
can see
Bangladesh
Manan
now.
say, so Manan, I'll throw this straight away to you. But
And-
probably Bangladesh's time is going to come this time. And
No,
Manan, do
no.
you think Bangladesh has a strong chance this Champions Trophy?
You say that's a democratic tournament, but there's no democracy in Bangladesh right now. No? So, so out. Sorry, but see, obviously Bangladesh will be there. Yeah, they'll play. I don't think they'll do much, to be honest. Vijay, to your point, talking about Pakistan, yes, they're always, unpredictable favorites in these conditions, but they'll find a way to screw things up. Either against India or any other country or within Pakistan, they'll prepare a road and they'll score 330 and the other team will come and score 331 in 40 overs or something. Something like that will happen. PK, I'll stop you. Please do not diss on England because the last time you dissed on a particular team, they ended up winning the World Cup. They ended up, beating us in BGT. So the only team you should diss on is India.
No, Manan, but
And
that's different, Manan. So PK is a secret Australian. He's a fake
Uh,
yeah,
Australian or fake Indian. So
take
he was
Indian.
actually supporting and he was actually really pissed off with the Australian team that they weren't doing well enough. And then, somehow it's like the old uncle's curse, right? When uncles keep cursing and then the team finally, wakes up to it and they'll be like, screw you, look at our performance. So that's what Australia pretty much did. Like,
yeah.
they didn't say it as much, but they showed it in their game. So that's not
They
the
did.
same as PK rooting for England. PK was actually deep down rooting for Australia in that World Cup. So
True, true, true,
you can
true.
look at the smirk on his face.
What can I say? I've got every single Indian cricket team T-shirt, but still, the allegations come thick and fast. Manan, continue. What were you saying?
Right. No, allegations do come, but they don't come without a basis, right? But we have, in Hindi, प्रत्यक्ष को प्रमाण की जरूरत नहीं होती.
Oh,
Maybe
Jesus
I,
Christ.
yeah, I would have had it another line had I was, Sidhu, but प्रत्यक्ष को प्रमाण की जरूरत नहीं होती और
Well,
कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती, गुरु.
uh, yes. Thank God that is
So
that
yes,
is the end of your Sidhusms.
yeah. So I'm kind of back to India and Shilini. We were talking about the selection. I do want to get a view on the selection itself and specifically the bowling department. India is taking a lot of spinners, and they're thinking that the wickets in Dubai will spin, which has not been the case a lot in the past. Yes, they've been a bit slow, but they're not spun a lot. So I do feel that is a tactical miss somewhere, and specifically, now they've got Varun Chakravarti in place of Jaiswal, and the fast bowling, anyways, is not good without Bumrah. Shami has not shown that promise that he had, at least in the
He's
few
been
games that
injured
I've.
as well.
Yeah, so the fast bowling is not that great anyway. Arshdeep is doing great, but I feel the selection somewhere needs to at least the bowling department might be against us. I'm very excited to see Shreyas bat, and he's doing very well. And he indicated, if you guys saw that interview, I think it was with Manjrekar or someone, where he or Parthiv Patel, I guess, where he mentioned that he was not playing the first game And thankfully, Virat got injured and he got a chance. Otherwise, we would not have seen him back in form. Probably there is some bias against the guy, is what I feel, but he is answering with the bat, and let's hope he continues to do that.
Dude, Shreyas is always informed till he gets a short ball.
I will contest that, Ritvik, because I specifically saw his innings in this recent series where they
Yes.
peppered him with short balls, and he actually delivered. Like, he played a lot of cuts and hooks, and he was on top of all of these short balls. Seems like he's worked on that weakness, so maybe we'll cut him a little bit of slack there because he does seem like the most informed player in the squad
Yeah.
right now. Even KL looked a little wonky, but honestly, among the batters, I thought Shreyas was the most impressive, especially the way he was handling spin. And
He
Manan,
has always
you
been good with spin. He has always
yeah.
been good with spin. So let's hope for our own sake that you are right.
Yeah,
Look, I think Vijay, you're right. Even though and even Manan, even though Shreyas has done well, I think he's missing a key ingredient. That is the backing of some kind of
Vidya
Hindi
Balan.
movie actors or
Yeah.
actresses. Yes, Vidya Balan or someone in that case. So I think
Yeah.
until he gets that backing, he just isn't going to be good enough. Um, Moving on. Look, England's going to come to Australia at the end of the year, but before that, India goes to England for the MAK Pataudi Trophy. I just hope England welcomes Virat Kohli's fourth stump with the same kind of welcome that we gave England sometimes here. So, as we all know, the Champions Trophy is being played in Pakistan, unless you're India, in which case, as Manna and Ritvik and Vijay have alluded to, it's being played in Dubai. Ritvik, how Pakistan will play, or how Pakistan play, as Manan said, they'll score 330 in one innings, and then somehow the other team will manage to get it done in 25 overs, or they'll win a thriller. Do you actually think, though, this whole we won't tour Pakistan, but we'll definitely play them as much as we can in all the other grounds but Pakistan, is sustainable, or is it just a bit of a hypocritical stand by India? And knowing the fact that you have the ear of some of cricket's greatest administrators, what can you tell us further about this?
Well, I think it's more like a political stance that the Indian government has taken because it's not that India doesn't engage with Pakistan at all. And I believe that there are some sports where India does play Pakistan. I think there was a blind cricket tournament which had happened where Pakistan had toured India. So all these things keep happening. But given the kind of financial muscle and glamour that's associated with cricket and movies, I think the government has taken a stance that in these two specific areas, India will not engage with Pakistan on either theirs or our soil. And once ICC tournaments come in, then obviously there's this BCCI has this muscle that they can have matches played on neutral grounds. But it's more like a political stand, and India is not losing anything out of all this. Like, we are still playing a lot of cricket. Yeah, for common fans like us, we would have loved to see more of Virat and Harris Rauf or Shahid Afridi or Shaheen Afridi, but most people don't care. I would have loved
Yeah.
to see a few Pakistanis in IPL as well. Like they are entertaining, they're good. But again, I don't think it's happening anytime soon
What
because
happened?
till the time this government is here, I don't think they are going to cut Pakistan any slack. And I don't see any other government which is coming to power in the next few years. So um, it's going to be long before we see India and Pakistan engage with each other in bilaterals or anything like that.
Yeah. I knew you slip of tongue though, but you mentioned Shahid Afridi. Probably he could come back from retirement as well. You never
But he's
know.
only 18, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's very young.
Right.
Vijay, look, as you know, Australia start off as favorites for any kind of sporting trophy, especially cricketing trophy. However, get this: Pat Cummins, Josh Hazelwood, Mitchell Marsh, all of them are injured. Stark has made himself unavailable for personal reasons. Marcus Stoinis has retired from limited overs cricket, funnily enough, after being selected for the Champions Trophy. This means that Stephen Smith is captain, and more worryingly for India, Travis Head probably will continue with his bull in a china shop kind of strategy for India. Given how they got trounced by Sri Lanka, as you said, 2-0, I reckon it'll be difficult to go beyond the top four. What do you reckon, Vijay?
Look, there's a difference between Sri Lankan conditions, which can be absolute dust bowls and proper spinning wickets, and Dubai conditions or Pakistan conditions, which so far seem to have indicated to be quite flat pitches. So I still think in the absence of, I like how you slid Mitchell Marsh's name along with the greats like Pat Cummins and Josh Hazelwood, because I don't think Mitch Marsh has been a significant contributor to the Australian team in terms of making an impact in any of these big series. So, um, having said that, look, Australia won a T20 World Cup with Aaron Finch as captain, and we don't even remember who performed well in that series. But they've got the spirit to win any sort of big tournament. They are big match players, so I still think Australia is definitely one of the strongest contenders in this series and easily my favorites by like you rightly said, Travis Head is still quite the threat, not just to India, to any team. And I think they've strategically withheld Sam Constas from this format, knowing that Bumrah is not going to be playing in it. And as far as the other players are concerned, what's the bowling attack looking like? Because I understand Nathan Ellis might make the squad, and there might be a few new spin. There seems to be a new spin attack with Kuhneman and a couple of other people, right? Is
And
Zappa back?
that and that's why I wanted to ask all three of you, given the fact that two of Australia's best bowlers, Cummins and Hazelwood, are no longer playing, do you think it's going to be difficult for the Australian bowlers to dislodge the opposition, even if Steve Smith, Glenn Maxwell, Travis Head all score centuries?
I think as far as the white ball format's concerned, Australia do find a way of getting really good bowlers who may even just perform seasonally. So I still think they'll come up pretty decent in those conditions. So like I said, I feel like Australia have this tendency to produce really good players, even if they just only seasonally perform. But when it comes to these big tournaments, they have this ability to, produce star players who will rise to the occasion. I hope that doesn't happen this time, because there's nothing sweeter than watching Australia get knocked out in the initial stages of a competition. And on that note, I will throw it back to the secret Australian supporter here, PK.
Look, it's going to be a new set of bowlers for Australia with Nathan Ellis and Sean Abbott, as you mentioned. Let's see how it goes. All right. The other thing also is, as Ritvik, unfortunately, the remainder of our podcast got cut out. So I'm recording a final bit again. So unfortunately, that's all we have time for this episode for the Common Fan podcast. The Champions Trophy starts in just over a couple of hours' time, and as Ritvik mentioned, India's first game against Bangladesh a day after. We'll see you soon, and until then, enjoy your cricketing adventures. Thank you, and goodbye.